Perhaps the closest historical comparison to what's happening in Libya right now is the NATO air campaign over Yugoslavia 12 years ago. The bombing also launched with the aim of protecting civilians, in this case the Kosovo minority, and it resulted in hundreds of civilian deaths, though it did manage to force the withdrawal of Yugoslav forces from Kosovo. Let's talk to Balkans expert Marko Gasic now to see if any parallels can be drawn. Good evening to you, Marko. I mean, NATO's attack on Yugoslavia at the time caused a lot of criticism from nations and human rights groups, didn't it? Just how justified are such humanitarian missions like we saw then, maybe like we're seeing now?
I would say that such interventions are never justified because they represent a huge investment on the part of those intervening, and they only justify themselves in terms of their ability to achieve the aims of the interveners, which are always strategic, designed to position themselves into occupation positions in strategically vital areas of the world. So in terms of how they benefit the local population, the answer is not at all. In fact, they're always very negative. Afghanistan in 1979, the intervention then has led to 30 years and still ongoing instability. Kosovo in 1999, still a fake state of desperate poverty and desperate crime in all that entire area. Bosnia was an opportunity for peace and diplomacy. They didn't take it, and a war ensued there as well. Iraq, we know, another nightmare. We have, and now we're building up to a new Iraq in Libya. Basically, these interventions have never led to successful conclusions. They lead to open-ended Western occupations and regional instability on a continuing basis designed to justify those occupations. That's what they're about.
So you're saying lessons have not been learnt along the line by the US and allied forces from these previous military campaigns?
Well, lessons have been learned very well. The people who are doing the campaigns are very well versed in the lessons. They know, for example, based on the experience of Kosovo, not to allow ceasefire monitors in because they can tell you who's breaking the ceasefire. Now, in the case of Libya, the Libyan foreign minister accepted the resolution as it was passed the other day and said that he demanded observers to monitor the ceasefire straight away. Why wasn't that invitation taken up? Because if we want a genuine dialogue, as the resolution called for, if we want peace and an end to violence, then we need a ceasefire, we need dialogue between the parties. Bear in mind that in Western countries, it takes 5 years to enable regime change, and it's the outcome of a long process of dialogue. Over in Libya and the Middle East, it seems that the expectation is to create regime change in 5 days and to do it at the point of a Tomahawk cruise missile.
Marko, what is your prognosis for this conflict? Gaddafi's promising a long war. Is that just words of a man with bruised pride, or do you think he will fight out to the last? Where's it going to go, do you think?
Well, with half the population, as I see it, on his side, Libya really does look like becoming a new Iraq. I presume we'll be seeing depleted uranium missiles thrown by the benevolent humanitarian Western aircraft onto that population there. We should remember that the resolution calls for dialogue, i.e. it requires two sides both to be around in order to engage in that dialogue. So it shouldn't be about getting rid of Colonel Gaddafi. If it is, then this action on day one is already in breach of international law because it's in breach of the resolution by which action was enforced. We needed dialogue, we needed ceasefire, we've got bombs instead. The bombs are not necessary for the peace. What we need is a ceasefire for the peace, and that really should be the aim of the mission. To the extent that it is not the aim of the mission has now become compromised and should be stopped as soon as possible.
And is there any way, do you think, that they'll get Gaddafi around the negotiating table?
I think Mr. Gaddafi will be very keen to get round a negotiating table to talk about what the future is and how the future can be shaped. But the problem is they don't want him there in any condition to say anything other than, where do I sign? I mean, they're looking to bomb him out of power rather than engage in a dialogue to create new institutions that might more fairly represent the wishes of the Libyan people. But I think we should give the Libyan people a chance to decide for themselves. And I'm sure that if you ask the Libyan people, they would vote for a dialogue between the parties rather than the bombing of the parties. They don't want their country to be destroyed by depleted uranium or bombing or occupied by Western forces. They want their country to be stable and peaceful. And for that to happen, the violence needs to stop on both sides and from the external side as well.
I kind of know what your answer is going to be to my next question, but at the end of the day, do you think the people of Libya will thank the coalition forces for intervening?
Has anyone ever thanked the coalition forces for intervening except someone with an incredible agenda? Do the Afghanistanis thank the coalition forces for intervening? Do the Yugoslavs, the Serbians, do the Iraqis? Nobody's grateful for those interventions because those interventions leave the people poor and impoverished and victims, and their countries are destroyed and turned into small satellite states of the global power. That isn't something anyone can be grateful for.
Marco Gasic, Balkans expert, always a pleasure to have you on the programme here at RT. Thank you.